So how do you start a podcast?
I think you just put a song in front of it, like da 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 da.
Someone asked ChatGPT, what's the best way to intro a podcast, right? You're Bobby.
I'm Bobby.
I'm Dipak. So let's ask a big question. All right. Let's paint a picture.
Right.
We're talking about strategic leaders going from being very crap to crap, right? But is there good news at the end of this tunnel? What makes you think that they've even raised their game?
Well, I mean, progress is progress.
In what space? What have you seen in your journey, or what do you think are the signs of green shoots? And I don't want to sugarcoat this, right? In terms of we're going further, we need to be really not optimistic.
No, I think the signs that something is taking a turn for the better would be leadership that actually listen more than they have done before. So actually wanting to fully understand what's going on in order to make the required changes, not only from their perspective, but from the perspective of the people that do it and understand it the best. And then I think also it's the proactive nature and sort of the change, right? It's all right talking about change, but let's see some sort of progress. So, you know, some sort of focus on it, you know, the ownership of it. So, okay, we've found a problem. This person's going to own this problem, or this person's going to never address it in this way, and try and create some sort of process out of it so that it, you know, longer term you can see the outcome.
But then that ownership, right? Because CISOs should own it. CISOs, and this is again coming from a position where everyone loves a CISO. Right?
Yeah.
I only learnt how to spell them recently, but it starts with a C.
Yeah.
And in there is their ownership of the whole strategy around how to manage cybersecurity. But it's beyond that, right? Because CISO is seen as a technical role, and yet most of the CISO's strength comes from the cultural role that they need to play. So a CISO shouldn't be buried in a technical function. In my experience, I've seen every CISO buried in the digital department, and yet they've got very little stretch into what HR should be doing on onboarding, what cultural change should be happening at the top of the business. There were programs of change in sectors where they said leadership all need to have a minimum level of qualification around cyber threat. They do a point in time activity, click a few buttons, and now they're suddenly certified as leaders in cyber threat. But yet the CISO, and I know I've chucked stuff out there that's made your eyebrows dance at me, so I know I'm going somewhere in digging in deep. But the CISO isn't sitting on that executive board. The CISO isn't an equal partner with the CFO or the COO or the C whatever letter you want to stick at them O. And that is the problem in itself. They're buried inside another level of responsibility, buried under somebody who doesn't get it.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the CISO, head of department, it doesn't matter who owns the strategy, right? But the reality is that in order for them to create that strategy, they need to understand the strategy above that and the strategy above that, right? Because all the strategies feed into the overarching business strategy, and they all need to align somehow. So if you've got like two teams that deal with different things, these strategies need to come together somewhere.
So what's that common goal? Can we not, let's see if we can find, between us two, seeing that we own the whole world now, right? Between us two, is there anything other than the common goal being that this business reduces the threat of it collapsing?
From the risk perspective, it's pretty obvious, right? The problem with the risk side of it is they can manage the risk, they can understand the risk, and they can try and mitigate it. But they're only going off of what the cyber team are doing. So like, one of the strategy might be let's make sure that all of our PCI devices are scanned for vulnerabilities.
You did 3 letters there, PCI. Break it down for me, what's PCI?
It's the payment card. Payment card, So like that might be one of the policies which risk are looking at to make sure it's done. But the people that actually do that are the cyber team, not them, right? So they're trying to say, this is what we expect of the cyber team and the organization, make sure you do it. But the reality is that they're not the ones doing it. So they rely on the cyber team to make that happen.
But then they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
I think what I'm trying to squeeze out of this is, if no matter what business it is,
yeah,
the overall goal is going to be successfully deliver something and reduce the probability of failure. Generically, whatever you are, right?
And
you're trying to deliver
contingency
something
as well, and
and the contingencies are the controls and stuff underneath it. So, what is the greatest threat to failure today? Not in 1977, the great year of the launch of Star Wars, where the whole world changed. When the whole world changed and the internet came along, and then the whole world changed and the chip that we can hold in our pocket came along. Is there any greater threat than cyber, where people can attack your business, that isn't policed by physical policing, that they can smash down your front door overnight while you're sleeping into your virtual systems, steal a load of stuff without you knowing, and then threaten not just the existence of your company, the data belonging to people, and then often hold your whole logistical framework of whatever you do to ransom, and then have an ongoing effect that you can't predict? Is there any other one threat that could do that overnight? Because I could unplug a building.
I mean,
down the road.
I don't know the logistics of how that works. I just know that I think that's super important. But what I also think is the conflict of interest in business right now, I think, is what's causing a massive problem.
Go on, give me that conflict.
If the main sort of IT department, so IT department, cyber team, risk team, whoever else, understood a little bit about what each other do and how it works and how they can come together, things would run so much better. Because, there's a difference between IT risk opposed to cyber risk, right? They're completely different. What IT team are focused on is different to what cyber team, right?
But then there's a crossover, right? If you want to keep systems up, yes, you've got to make sure it's the latest version of this and that, but you've also got to stop it from being breached, endpoint security, etc.
Yeah.
But then I want to bark up that tree and point a finger at somebody or somewhere and say that until leadership understand that IT is not a part of their threat, it is their threat, and therefore it should be taking a seat at the decision-making table, they're probably not going to be far enough down the journey where we can have this conversation in a year or two's time and say things have fundamentally changed. It's all good that they've gone and ticked some boxes on an anecdotal, I know how to spell CISO, which I obviously can now, or I know how cyber works, I know what a phishing scam is, but it's not enough that they're not only discussing that as one of their major threats to the business. Instead, their major threats to the business is, well, people might be upset on my next people survey, or what if that building doesn't work tomorrow? Well, those things aren't going to fundamentally demolish your entire business overnight.
No. And it must be the lack of understanding. Either it's a lack of understanding or pure ignorance. It's got to
Let's be ignorant, right? We'll go on both of those. Understanding is something you can teach, but ignorance is a character-driven thing.
Yeah.
In my opinion, right?
Yeah.
You're ignorant because you choose not to want to learn anymore. I'm sure someone can tweet us differently or something like that. But for now, you choose to be ignorant because you said, I'm done. I've learned what I want to learn, and this is it. I run a business this way. But yet we want cyber to be the one thing that every business deals with first. That thing you said earlier about building that people, building your culture, building your business.
Maybe we just need to make cyber a bit more interesting. And what I mean by that is sometimes outside of the cyber team, it's a very stereotypical way of thinking, cyber, sit coding all day, sitting in the locked rooms in the dark, there's a very stereotypical
long beards, even longer hair.
Yeah, it's very typical. This is what cyber does, and they must be fighting all the time and getting rid of the bad people. However, right, and you need to think about all audiences. What cyber do and how we do it should be accessible for everyone. On a certain level, right? And of course, it needs to become more normalized in terms of thinking in this way. We don't sit in dark rooms all day. No. I certainly don't, right? and I think part of going into cyber is trying to break that stereotype for me as well, because you can sit in a cyberspace and be that cyber person, but you can also understand where, you have to make those connections with other parts of the business. Otherwise, nothing gets done. If you If you don't have a great relationship with, say, your cyber team, and the relationship isn't quite there, say, with the IT team, how do you make sure that the developers are developing stuff, like we spoke about earlier, that is fit for purpose?
But then if we go back, we spoke about that great stat, 95% of all cyber threats come from people vulnerability. So then cyber isn't an IT problem. It's a business problem, of which there's a technology part solution, there's a technology part secure. But if you had your dream position for your whole genre of business, which is cyber as a whole, you'd want to do a lot more work on how people are onboarded, how their skills are maintained, how you want to be so cyber. I've got a colleague who literally won't respond to any emails until someone's told them I've emailed you.
Yeah.
Because that's the most safe way that they want to be. And they're not a cyber expert, but that level of maturity is going to support your technology solutions to do the rest, right?
Yeah.
So where does that begin? How do we get that pushing through? Because you can throw as much tech at it as possible. You're still going to lose the battle, aren't you?
When you're trying to transform an area like cyber, like I say, that kind of sits in the corner that no one really... In fact, sometimes cyber are seen as, people that put the walls up. They don't come here, like, we're trying to block you. And to be fair, I suppose we are in a way, we're trying to keep things safe. However, there's ways we can do that without causing major disruption to the way that you work.
Yeah, I was kind of, as you're talking, I'm picturing this idea that, cyber's seen as those walls and those barriers, and yet when we enter most modern buildings, you probably have a pass to go through a front door, then a pass to get into a lift, then a pass to get out of the lift, then a pass to get into the office room, right? So 4 or 5 layers of physical security. No one questions that anymore. No. But yet, if I have to do a thumbprint and then a password that's stored in a secure folder on my laptop, and then do a two-factor authentication, which I'm
here
sure
we go again.
There's a shorter way of saying that. Is it 2FA or something like that? Is it
MFA?
Yeah, there you go. I'm not a specialist. But yet people are still bothered by that, and yet you've done 5 layers to get into your office desk. Yeah. Or it's that cultural shift of learning to support your end goal from a technology. Because if you had all those people in place, and if we lean on that stat, well, if you got rid of 95% of the vulnerabilities, which are human beings, you could deal with that remaining 5% in a much better controlled way, right? You could do your vulnerability assessments. You could look at where your patch status is. You could find a consolidated database to give you all that information. Yeah. But you need that with the support. You alone can't defend it. Yeah, and one of the problems as well is that for a cyber person, especially highly technical, to sit in a room with people and try and explain it in a way that they understand can be difficult too. Unless you've got a particular character who can explain it in this way that kind of makes sense, but technical people are technical people, and you speak that language. You need the specialist to be specialist, right? Yeah. You need the compromise of languages so that everyone understands. Compliance is not security. Ticking the box doesn't close the breach. No. So is it 27,001? Which are some of those compliance regulations where people think, in my days, in the ancient... ISO 20001, PCI, DSS, so like... All these other things. If you tick those boxes, I assume you still can't sleep easy at night. Even if you're passing these compliance checks or audits and things like that, yay, thumbs up, everything's good. But honestly, sometimes that's by the skin of your teeth. And it's still not, that's why I think it's really important to have an internal audit as you go to check things out. It would be really, really cool for us to be able to say, go to the InfoSec team and say, hey, look, we actually want to check how secure this area is. Why don't we do a mini internal test? Let's check it and see. And I'm trying to impose here, and you can correct me when I'm wrong, because I will be in a second, I'm sure. It feels like most businesses are sitting on their laurels with misinformation in the context of they're just assuming someone's dealing with cyber threat. Yeah. They're assuming that people know enough. They are not looking at the reality from the experts and then giving the experts a voice at the table that matters. Yeah. I've seen them buried in HR departments, I've seen them buried in tech departments, I've seen them buried in finance departments, but your CISO and your CISO support teams are not in the place where their voices are heard. No. Conflict of interest. And okay, here we are, we have, say, an agent that's running on all of our servers. We are
80% compliant or 90%. Yay, everyone, great, that looks great for management. What we don't realise is there's actually another 100 assets somewhere that don't have it on there, but we're just pretending they don't exist because it looks good.
Oh, we can't see them. We're blinkered.
But to cyber people, we are dying because we're like, we know something is seriously going to happen here. You know, you're waiting on it. You wait every day for something to happen because it will happen. You know, it doesn't matter how big, how small, like, it's getting more and more intelligent. They're getting more and more, you know, they're trying everything they can to get there. And, you know, it's very, very, you know, you can get like a denial of service attack that will come through. And, you know, sometimes when you're looking at it, you see one or two things that if you hadn't put in place, that would have been through. It would have wiped the whole lot out, you know. And when you're seeing this, like, sitting on that seat of being the cyber person, you're like, wow, this is mad. But it's fine, it didn't happen.
It didn't happen.
It's okay, we're here, we saved it, like, so everything cool.
So between the fact it didn't happen, between the fact that 80% looks like a good number, because, yeah, if I came home with 80% in any of my tests, I'll be a good day, right? But we're talking about cyber. It only takes 1 from 1 million vectors to be successful. But there was something you touched on, you probably have to repeat the exact word, but it was something you touched on, right, about they are trying their best to attack you, but then you made me think we're not trying our best to defend it. So
no, we're not.
And we know inevitably someone will always find a way, and we'll get onto the response part, right? But you've basically said the scales are tipped. They're doing everything they can to attack. It doesn't sound like we're even doing everything to defend, so we're already losing this battle.
Yeah. And like, it's hard for me to understand why that might be. And, you know, I can come up with assumptions and...
Let's do it. Chuck some out.
This is it, you know, I just assume people don't really understand what it even is to be able to really see the risk here.
If we go back to the crossing the road analogy, my 6-year-old son turned around, we're driving along, he turned around and he's gazing out the window, probably wondering how many leaves are on a tree or something random like that. And he goes, Papa, that boy doesn't know what he's doing. I said, why? He goes, he was smaller than me and his mummy let him run across the road.
Oh.
And I had to explain to him, it probably isn't the boy's fault. It's probably the mum and dad, the CEOs and the CFOs and the whoever owes her, who haven't given that person enough information to act on it. I don't think that kid intentionally ran across the road. He used a few more colourful words about the kid. I was like, let's not repeat your father's colourful words. But the point is, the people in charge hadn't given enough information for their behaviour to change.
No.
And in business, it's the leadership that are not making the right decisions from the very, very beginning. I want to stick it on the plate and nail it to the floor and say, look, if you don't have leaders that see cyber as the number one threat, then dismiss them and ask them to go on to a contract to a competitor, because they'll let the competitor fail and you'll be ahead of them.
Yeah. I mean, cybersecurity is not the same as IT.
No.
And if it's seen as being the same as IT, I think that's a problem. Even straight away, it kind of shows you a red flag.
Do we still use P45s? Do people know what they are? Because I think we need to start issuing a few of them out,
and
right?
I think, you know, I think people really need to listen to the experts that are saying we have a problem here. And really just taking it, you know, if you're not going to be the expert, at least listen to your expert. Because
absolutely. Why wouldn't you?
And you know, you need to have that back-end, not only from like, you know, the back-end from the leadership, you know, the budget to go along with it and the money to go along with it, right? We shouldn't be using 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 different tools and trying to convince people of how important this is. You know, trying to convince that, you know, because we want to do the right thing, you know, this is extremely important and it's something that needs attention. And that budget, you should recognise it as a budget for that, you know, it needs the attention that sometimes it's not always got.
So, and you touched on it earlier, that the human nature of it hasn't happened yet, right?
Yeah.
But then, hold on, we could quote, and we won't for legal reasons, possibly, but we could quote, you know, supermarket supply chains and consumer goods companies. We could quote airlines. We could quote financial institutes, you know, unheard of ones, including back-end ones, who've all had massive infernos burn on them, some that have debilitated them for months.
Some of them are probably really good with their security as well, and it just shows you how...
Yeah, but it comes into the point you're making, right? Because I'm learning from you that, you know, it is inevitable, but even for that the big ones that had a prolonged exposure, which was definitely in the UK media for a while, they clearly didn't have and we'll move on to it, right? The response set up.
Exactly, yeah.
Right? So we know that if my house alarm does go off, what is my secure response? Well, at the moment, I probably haven't trained it. My kids will run around, try to cross the roads really safely, and my wife will start screaming at me and go, get the Hoover. I'll assume it's the spider, but it could be an intruder.
Yeah.
So you might have the wrong response to the right alert. So then where and how many fires need to burn? And I was going to weirdly fall into analogy, because I remember growing up where house fires were unfortunately very common. And I had friends who were then firefighters in my earlier years who were like, going out blazing. And then a massive campaign around smoke alarms went off, and something like 98+% of fires in homes disappeared. And most of my firefighter friends went, it's brilliant, but I haven't put a fire out for months, because the campaign of cultural change came. So how many fires burn before we stop them? And more importantly, what is the right response when you do get breached? Because you are going to get breached.
So it is going to happen, but if you have certain defences set up, you can try and limit the impact to a point that it is no longer there. If you don't have enough of these layers, then what happens is it's just straight in.
So you've got to practice them.
You've got to practice. You've got to set them up.
You've got to set them up.
You've got to set them up. You've got to practice them in different scenarios. You've got to make sure that when these things happen, everyone knows exactly what to do at that point. You know, like drills off. This is what we're going to do. We're going to simulate this. We're going to go for it, and this is going to be the outcome of what happens.
But it distracts me from my day job. It's not the thing I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
It needs time. It needs budget. It needs some sort of investment. And still, that CISO is buried in a department where even if you have got that playbook, that's what we call it. If you've got that playbook, then it's still a time and resource thing.
Yeah.
So we keep coming back to the same kind of cultural disposition almost, where until we've given it the attention it needs, until we've convinced that fire is coming closer and closer and closer, and let's face it, it's getting closer every day.
Yeah.
Then you need to be able to practice it in a controlled way, know what the results were, have more playbooks than the attackers have, because I unfortunately, there's loads of information out there. You can easily figure out they're trying thousands of elaborate ways to do it.
Yeah.
And yet we all just go, oh, that's junk mail, that's junk mail. What if every single junk mail was a phishing attempt, which it normally is?
Yeah.
Then how many times have you been attacked and yet you've not got your defences up?
And you've got to remember there's different avenues when it comes to risk with cybersecurity, right? So you've got like the standard, I'm going to say hackers, you know, people hacking, that kind of buzzword.
Don't call them happy hackers.
No,
because they are happy, because it's a free market for them at the moment.
Shouldn't be happy.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, data.
Yeah.
Right? Who cares about data? It's like, here we have all of this data. We don't know what the data is. We don't know how it's categorized. We don't even know where it lives or who owns it. If somebody hacks it, that's fine though. Like,
it's gone, but
there's data. This is the
it.
thing. Like, there's so much data around, and like, it's not controlled at all. And all of these other, you know, data, and these are all risks too, right? You need to understand where your data is, how it's been held, how it's been stored, how it's been collected. And data is also a massive risk. So there's multiple avenues to cyber, I think, that needs that attention.
So then, as you speak about different types of data, and we know that no one business is going to have all the capability to manage
No,
them.
and of course not.
You'll often have third parties who are providing services for you. I know, and I'm sure you can bounce with me on this one, that when it comes to vetting those third parties, there's all sorts of vetting that goes on.
Yeah.
But yet your own house, was it the plumber's house, is always leaking.
Yeah.
You've asked that third party to be compliant, to be robust, to prove this, to prove that, and yet you haven't done it for yourself. So if your third parties are strong enough, you know, in your experience, are the weakest links anywhere? Does it matter who's got the weakest link?
It doesn't matter who it is. Like, even if you're saying, okay, my third party's dealing with that, okay, there's still a risk there as well. It doesn't matter who it is. That's what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't matter the setup, how big or small the company is or who is. That is not their responsibility. It's still this is still your stuff. And I just think, you know, yeah, you can't do everything, right? You can't do everything. There's a lot that's on, but get the basics right. Like, actually understanding where things are at. You know, what assets you have, what software runs on them, the basic of the basic. You know, how we manage access controls on that. You know, like, this person left the company 10 years ago, they still have access to. It's just the cleanup and the maintenance of the stuff that you already have. And it might take a little bit of time for people to go back, and it doesn't seem that important, but once you know your house is in order, then you can control things in a much easier way and start to understand, okay, what needs your priority? What should we be focusing on first? And make it like a longer journey. This is why you can't rush these things. You know, sometimes it is a process.
You've shouted out to me my favourite phrase, risk-based decision making. If you can pile up all your messes, measure how much of a mess they are, deal with the ones that you feel are the worst.
Even that's a risk in itself. The fact we have no visibility, risk.
There you go.
Because if we don't have visibility, we have no idea what's going on.
Well, that's why there's a lock. There's a lock on my shed, so I can't see the mess inside. We'll leave it there. But it's a problem, right?
Yeah. But and it's okay to say that I'm not sure. I mean, it's not. It shouldn't be the case. But it's okay to go. We have improvements to make. You know, we need to do this. That's great. That's how you develop. That's how you grow, and that's what needs to happen. Sometimes you just need to honestly say it's not how it should be, and we need to address it somehow.
And then letting the experts filter that message through. As you're right, you know, every technical person isn't going to be able to articulate what it means, but somewhere between there, probably the CISO's team role or the strategic leadership role is to articulate that out, and also get this idea. And it's picking up on something you said earlier that kind of connected now is, you know, 100% compliance is the minimum standard, not the maximum requirement. Yeah, if you're 100% compliant with some standard, that's the starting point. But most businesses, you said it, large or small, they're all the same because they're run by people.
Yeah.
So anything less than that, and you should just see it as not good enough.
Yeah.